Welcome, English 1102 friends. This is a video guiding you through two poems. These two poems go in the nature and settings module. This video is going to go through Cherrylog Road by James Dickey, famous Georgia writer. James Dickey died in the 1990s, but really famous for, he's most famous now for writing Deliverance. This is probably his most famous poem. It's also set in Georgia. And then Going Home, New Orleans by Cheryl St. Germain, very clearly a poem about a particular place, which is New Orleans. And this very particular moment of being in New Orleans, the evening and the sunset, that sort of early evening when the light hangs late and stubborn in the sky. We'll go through Going Home, New Orleans first, because it is about this very particular place at this very particular time of day, what she calls, and this very particular feeling of being in New Orleans, which is everything going slow. You know, it's hot and everybody's sort of moving slow and the day just feels like it's in slow motion. And that's really what this poem gives you, is being in New Orleans and moving at this particular New Orleans slow pace. Some slow evenings when the light hangs late and stubborn in the sky. So it's almost like the sun is moving slow and setting slowly. Gives itself up to darkness slowly and deliberately. Slow cloud after slow cloud. Slowness enters me like something familiar, and it feels like going home. So part of being in New Orleans, especially in the summertime when it's sort of hot and humid, is just like, see, everybody, you're just moving slow, and you're moving slow, the people are moving slow, the sky is moving slow, the sun is moving slow, the clouds are slow, everything's slow. It's all there in the disappearing light. All the evenings, slow boats, thick-middled trees with slow-sounding names, oak, mimosa, pecan, magnolia. Slow tree sap, that's where you get maple syrup and pancakes and grits. Butter melting slowly, so even the food is moving slow. And slow-eyed strippers. She plays with the SLOE, because that's a kind of gin, so it's like the strippers have been drinking. Slow-throated blues, so even the music is this sort of slow music. And the mint juleps drunk so slowly on all the southern porches. So it's like everybody's even drinking their drink slowly. Ice cubes melting slowly in all the iced teas, and slow-faced people. Crabs and shrimp and crawfish, all animals that kind of move slowly in the water. And the slow lips that eat and drink and love and speak, that slow, luxurious language, this sort of, traditional stereotype of people in the South speaking more slowly. Savoring each word, and the slow-moving nuns. New Orleans, traditionally Catholic city, so you got a lot of nuns. They're moving slowly. And the slow river that cradles it all, and chicory coffee. Chicory, a kind of coffee that's really dark and thick that you have to drink slowly, and that is also traditionally associated with New Orleans and with Louisiana. And the slow dreams and the slow healing wounds and the slow smoke of it all, slipping out, ballooning into the sky. Slow, deliberate, and magnificent. And so the final argument of this poem is all this slowness is good, because it gives you time to sort of savor things and enjoy them, and then just enjoy the last light of the day, enjoy the sunset, and you want to enjoy it at a sort of slow, leisurely place, at this slow, leisurely pace, like being deliberate about the kind of experiences you're having. And that's what New Orleans is about, and that's what being in New Orleans gives you, is this sort of slow, happy magnificence that you drink in and take in and are a part of. Cherrylog Road is sort of a more complicated poem. On a basic level, you may say, well, I don't understand how these poems go together, because this is Going Home, New Orleans is this sort of sweet, happy poem. Cherrylog Road is a poem about two teenagers meeting in a junkyard. They have to sneak away to meet up with each other and having sex in this junkyard, which doesn't seem to have anything in common. But both of these poems have this very clear sense of place. It's important that Cherrylog Road happens in a junkyard, what the poem calls like the graveyard of dead cars, because part of what you get is this contrast between the setting where everything is dead and rusting, and the kudzu's taking it back over. These plants are just growing up over the cars, and it's this sort of landscape of death and decaying things. And then these two young people come into it and are just like full of life and full of energy and full of happiness and full of excitement. The excitement of teenagers sneaking off and getting away with something. Off Highway 106 at Cherrylog Road, if you want to be specific about where this poem is set, If you know North Georgia, this poem is set between Blue Ridge and Ellijay. Cherrylog Road is right off the highway there. I entered the 34 Ford, so you got all these old cars in this junkyard, smothered in kudzu. Nature creeping back into the metal and the man-made stuff and taking it back over, things dying. And then from the other side crept into an Essex, an Essex, if you want to Google an Essex, it's an old car that isn't made anymore. A rumble seat is one of those old-timey seats in the back of cars that you could flip up and ride in. And then out again aboard a blue Chevrolet, releasing the rust from its other color. So the guy in this poem is crawling through these cars, getting to the center of the junkyard. He crawls in one car, he crawls into a Ford, and then out the other side, and then into the Essex, and out the other side, and into the Chevrolet, and out the other side. I changed with them inward toward the weedy heart of the junkyard, for I knew that Doris Holbrook would escape from her father at noon and would come from the farm. So you find out he's going to meet Doris at noon in the junkyard so they can hook up. Sitting in each in turn, as I did, leaning forward in a wild stock car race in the parking lot of the dead. That's where you get that idea that the landscape around them, the setting is death. This is where the junkyard is where cars go to die. Time after time, I climbed in and out the other side like an envoy or a movie star. So like he imagines himself, like a movie star getting out of a car, walking down the red carpet. As I neared the hub of the yard, passing through many states, many lives, to reach some grandmother's long Pierce arrow, sending platters of blindness forth from its nickel hubcaps and spilling its tender upholstery. A Pierce arrow is another kind of car that they don't make anymore. It's a really nice car, like a Rolls Royce or something like that. And you find out that the car that he's going to, the Pierce arrow that he's eventually going to wind up in, is a limousine with like a window divider between the back seat and the driver. It's like the nicest car where they've got space enough to meet up in and hook up, which is why they choose this car. The glass panel in between. So the glass panel there between the back seat and the front seat, and he gets into this limousine and imagines he's killing time waiting for the girl to show up, and so he imagines like the person who originally owned this car and the driver and her talking on the phone to the driver through the little telephone in the car. I popped with sweat as I thought I heard Doris Holbrook scrape like a mouse in the southern state sun that was eating the paint in blisters. Again, this imagery of like decaying and rusting and paint flaking off and stuff like that. And Doris finally shows up. Where is she at? And he's worried about Doris's dad catching them, finding them, and shooting him with a string-triggered 12-gauge shotgun. Through dust, where the black snake dies of boredom and the beetle knows the compost has no more life. Someone outside would have seen the oldest car's door inexplicably closed from within. That's Doris getting in and getting into the limousine and shutting the door behind her. I held her and held her and held her, convoyed at terrific speed by the stalled, dreaming traffic around us. Well, here they are together. They've gotten the car together and they're hooking up. We clung, glued together with the hooks of the seat springs working through to catch us red-handed. They're bouncing on this old car seat. Amidst the gray, breathless batting that burst from the seat at our backs. Again, more imagery of like the cars falling apart and the stuffing coming out of the seats. And then, when they're finished, we left by separate doors into the changed other bodies of cars. So it's like all the cars that are in the junkyard are still rusting and rotting away, but they feel sort of renewed, like born again and full of life. She down Cherrylog Road, I to my motorcycle parked like the soul of the junkyard restored. And so he goes out and gets on his motorcycle, and unlike the cars in the junkyard, he cranks it up and it's full of life, just like he feels. Tore off up Highway 106, continually drunk on the wind in my mouth, ringing the handlebar for speed, wild to be wreckage forever. And so it's just like the contrast of being all these wrecked cars and the wreckage of these cars, but also the sort of like feeling happy and born again from meeting up with somebody, like teenagers sneaking off and getting away with something like this. And so there is this contrast between the dead and decaying cars in the junkyard and how him and Doris getting together makes them both feel. So you get this very vivid depiction of place in both of these poems, whether it's New Orleans or this junkyard in North Georgia, but also the setting makes them feel these very particular ways, like this sort of full of life or full of this sort of slow, happy appreciation and going home New Orleans. So what you get is this very particular place that generates these very particular feelings in both of these poems. If you've got questions about James Dickey or about Cheryl St. Germain, who is still alive, as I'm making this video, or about either of these two poems, just be in touch. Otherwise, I hope that's helpful for understanding these poems and how they fit into the nature and settings module. Thanks, y'all.